For us, everything is a test. You don't launch anything without having a benchmark. Even if you're saying, I'm just putting this one, at least you need to have a benchmark of what you expect to have from a previous period and how that would work.
Welcome to the Entail AI podcast, where we go behind the scenes with top marketing leaders and innovators who are driving growth for their brands. In today's episode, we'll talk with Eyal Nir about his approach to multi-channel marketing at Taboola. Eyal has over a decade of expertise in marketing, holding various positions at Dentsu and Dentsu-X, where he started as the Google account manager and moved to managing director. Currently, Eyal is the head of growth marketing at Taboola, and we have the pleasure of discussing his approach to all things marketing.
Let's start with the importance of multi-channel marketing or omni-channel marketing. Why do you think that's so important today?
I'll start off from the other end. I don't think it's important. What's important is your business. And when you want to push your business, you need to look at basically at circles of impact that you can make. So because at any given moment, you have a certain amount of budget, a certain amount of resources and time. So either people or time or their time or whatever, or someone that you bring in as a freelancer to help you out. And you need to prioritize with that. So if you're a small-time business and you don't have money to put in to start doing paid, like to start bringing users at scale, so you should first start with doing the basics of making sure you're out there. So having your proper website, having your proper SEO, having moving forward, having a proper email marketing strategy and activity, etc., etc. The more you grow, the more you find yourselves, okay, I'm limited in my capacity to grow in this specific channel. And then you need to go to another one. And then you need to go to another one. Then you need to go to another one. And and then there comes a moment where you understand that your activity is complex, meaning you are literally multi-channel if you planned it or not. And then you need to make sure that you're synchronized. And when someone meets you in one step of the funnel or in one type of channel, he gets an experience and message and focus that is relevant to where he is. Because every channel and every moment and every step in the funnel, your potential client would have a different intent.
Yeah.
So, Facebook, you just scroll and look for or at least in the past, you scrolled and look for babies and cats. Now you scroll and look for people to fight with or something like that. Other platforms, just like, I'm passing my time. If you go to search, you literally looking for something. So you're looking for a question, want to get the answer back. ChatGPT, once it becomes like something that can actually be a channel for you, is even more that like, I don't even want to think, just just digest it for me and give me what I need. And for every area, every moment that you have there, you need to make sure that you give a value to your clients, and you need to make sure that you are pinpointing the right message and pinpointing the right experience.
So to summarize it, you're saying that the challenge is, you have one challenge of being in sync across different channels and making sure that the company uses the same language, the same visuals, the same identity, and so on across different channels. So it's always the same, like the people that meet you across SEO, social media, different channels of social media, paid, etc. They're meeting the same identity, the same company. So being in sync. And also making sure that the messaging is appropriate for the right funnel stage that the user is at. If they're just in discovery, or if they're ready to buy, or if they're somewhere in the middle, that the messaging is correct for that, right?
I agree, and I would even add one more complexity to it. Mm-hmm. In Taboola, for example, we have multiple types of clients.
Mm-hmm.
So my main focus is small, medium businesses. But you also have enterprise. You also have publisher side. You also have an e-commerce solution. And more. Like it's a complex suite of products that can fit to different areas. And you also need to make sure that with the work that you're doing, you're also not harming the messaging or positioning for another type of clients at the same time. So it's a balancing. Like there's a team that's in charge of branding. And there's a team, and we're in charge of growth. We're in charge. At the end of the day, we're a profit and loss unit. So we need to bring the money in. If I need to choose between having the perfect brand or getting someone to convert, I tend to go for the convert. But I still need to keep the, I can't say something that is not correct about the brand, or that's not plausible.
So you're saying that in order to achieve that sync between departments, you have like your profit and loss growth department, and the branding department is a separate department that's probably more in charge of syncing between the channels. But that means that the branding department is not a profit and loss department. I mean, how do they measure their impact?
Good question. It's work in progress.
Okay.
I mean, to be honest, I mean, for everyone, everywhere, at all times, how do you measure yourself as a work in progress? Because you actually,
Mhm.
because it's a moving target. Because you think it's one thing, and then after 6 months of going to that direction, you may realize that you're going somewhere else. But yeah, so I don't have much to say about their area yet, because it's really in baby steps of how to properly measure. But we have uh, we are a very data designated organization, like Taboola as a whole, but even specifically, and everything that is related to growth is really like we're trying to connect the specific paid media channel to the specific conversion, and did that conversion move forward to the next step and the next step and actually start to spend and then scale, etc. Versus other areas where it's more, well, we don't really know how to attribute this specific activity to what we're doing, but we're trying to kind of to have multiple touch points and just push the envelope forward, kind of
So
thing.
how many people, by the way, how many people do you have in your marketing organization?
So specifically for growth, we are 13, including myself. Plus, it's marketing, so everyone has its own agency that he's working with. So it's like it's an octopus that you just try to manage.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also supporting teams that are not specifically under my territory, but we work together, like field marketing that we work together, or geo marketing, or content, or non-paid social. So these are functions, or studio, like these are functions that are not that serve both our goals and other goals for marketing, and we try to make it work.
I think one of the important things in marketing are speed. I mean, we work with natural intelligence. They're also like they're a marketing company, a big marketing company, and they're very successful. And one of the things that I see that is quite remarkable about them is that they execute very, very quickly, as opposed to, I don't know, B2B companies that we work with that can be terrific companies. But when it comes to marketing, because of the DNA of the company, that's a B2B company, they provide service, to companies and so on. Um, so they're much slower, they're much more hesitant to move forward. And often I see in marketing, if you want to get results, and it's also about testing, checking what works. It's not like you have a plan and you execute like with R&D. You really need to, like today, in a way, marketing is more R&D than R&D in a way, because you have to research. You can't be sure what's going to perform, right? So you have to research before you can really execute at scale. So how do you solve that? How can you achieve speed when you're such a huge organization like this type of octopus that you described?
So it's a very good question, and it's an always balancing act. But what we try to have is clear goals for the team in terms of we care about revenues. Like that's the one thing. And then the question is, what's the proxy to support those revenues? And to each team member, it would be a different proxy. Let me explain. Paid media team would care about pushing for MQLs and contact maids and opportunities. Our SEO people would push for MQLs, because going beyond that is pushing it too far. Like they won't have enough data to work with. But I don't want to keep them in the traffic area, because if they just want to bring traffic to Taboola, that's not the case. Like that's not the game. Our teams that work on events or influencer and partnerships, they're focused on opportunities. Opportunities meaning, did we get someone to join a meeting or not?
Mm-hmm.
And because they're small-scaled channels, and because they're small-scaled, we want to make sure that they're focused on the quality and not quantity.
Mm-hmm.
So each one has its own nuance. So that's kind of one thing that helps us move it forward. The second is we try to make everyone as independent as possible. So in places where we have bottlenecks of there's too many people trying to work with the studio, so we have additional freelancers we can work with in order to move faster.
Yeah.
And when we need to work on like a lot of our testing is just doing a lot of landing pages and iterations to landing pages and iterations to our forms, etc. So we're trying to find in each given moment how can we multiply the type of activity? How can we do things in parallel so we won't get stuck? And I want to connect it to your remark around research. So there's two elements. One, research is amazing, but we also try to avoid the analysis paralysis. So if at any given moment, and I'm also working with, we have a data team inside, and we also have an external data team that we work with. In any given moment, if the analysis is going to take too long and not necessarily give me like a high enough confidence in the decision making, I would rather make a long shot to do a test, a small scale test, something fail fast, and then see what I can do with that. Because we're B2B, we don't have the privilege of data. Like Taboola from the B2C side has tons of data. Like there's millions and millions of impressions per day on ads and ad decisions that are happening. This is a very data-driven activity.
I have a friend that works, I think, in that department. I mean, like writing algorithms. He lives in New York.
Yeah,
It's like tons of data to analyze, I'm sure.
it's in petabytes on a daily basis. Like it's super crazy. And
yeah,
but when you try to do something for B2B, like you're running a Facebook activity, and you're doing it per market. So each market, like if US, you might have enough data, but if you're looking at small market in EMEA, you're getting 2 conversions a day. Like it's really hard to say something,
Yeah.
So you always need to try and play with, okay, how can I build a structure so I could be on continuous learning. So we would never launch anything without a test, without an A and a B. We never not launch anything without measuring it, and then even if we don't know exactly what we'll have there, just being able to, in retrospect, connect it and understand and have like an overall view. But we also don't wait until we get like concise, precise results, because then we just won't be able to move. Like in order to have like even a statistical significance in some cases, you would need to wait 3-4 months.
Yeah.
And in many cases, it's not worth it. Like I'm gonna bet. I'm trying to bet on the best version. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose.
Often you can get that's part of like, if like multi-arm bandit, like being able to make decisions based on small data sets, like small amount of data. But also, as a human, you can often make a decision based on not a lot of data. Like it's almost like a gut decision, but you're often right. I mean, like you say, you don't do it as a policy, like the entire marketing like that. But often, as you say, if you can make smart decisions by yourself where you don't have the data and you can move faster, then often moving faster is more important than waiting for a few months till you get the data, then you miss the opportunity, basically.
Exactly. And in many cases, I have data that is close, but not exact, which gives me a trend. And for me, it's good enough. Because we have multiple dashboards that goes into every different specific area. But I'm trying to search for something, and I want to do something new. And it's not tracked. So I'm looking for something that is close enough that we've done in the past to say, okay, I have this level of confidence of what I'll get there. We set up a clear hypothesis of what we want to see from it, launch it, and then after a certain amount of time that we define at the beginning, say, okay, so how far were we from that hypothesis? We're always far. But then at least you have a benchmark. Like I thought it would be 30, this would be my cost for whatever, and then I'm at 50. What happened? Or I'm in 20. What happened? Like at least you can start from Eyal of the past had one idea.
Yeah.
And he thought it because these assumptions, and now what happened and how reality connects to that. And that helps us get the ball rolling.
Okay, interesting. And so can you Can you maybe mention a few of Taboola's multi-channel marketing strategies? Like, what are you using?
We're a scale organization. So bread and butter is paid media. At the end of the day, this is kind of if you're looking for mass volume, this gives mass volume. And also this gives mass consideration effect because you just appear in many places all the time, repetitively. And it depends on the market, like mature market. If I'm going to a new market, I usually won't have enough budget and would usually try to do something like guerrilla. Like I would want to make sure that I cover basic search, like brand search. If I have a bit more, then could go for like adjacent terms and that area.
Mhm.
And from there, we can grow. So that could be like if I have a geo-marketing support, so I can do an event or I can do a partnerships. If I have more budget, I can go grow to Facebook. If I have more budget, I can then be more adventurous and then try YouTube and try LinkedIn and try TikTok. And all of those all the time have a support of SEO and email marketing.
Just thinking about how you manage this type of operation, because it sounds like, there's a war here. So, like the army has different types of units working together. It's very, very difficult to manage. And what you're describing sounds exactly like that. So let's say you want to kick off a new geo, like you're saying, you want to start advertising, I don't know, somewhere in Asia. And you have different, like you're using different departments in the company, different schools of marketing. You say, okay, I want to do SEO, I want to do email marketing, or the spearhead is usually paid media. So you want to advertise on Google, maybe you want to advertise on Facebook, you want to support that with SEO, email, events, and so on. So how do you manage all this? How do you manage and sync, not just in terms of brands, but in terms of knowing who does what and when and how to measure and how to prepare? How do you manage all these departments at the same time? Or is it like a multidisciplinary team where you have like SEO paid?
The core activities that we have are under one umbrella, which is my team. And that makes life easier. So at any given time, you can set up the priority. Like if I want to do SEO, email marketing automation of whatever, like if it's a chat or email, paid media, partnerships, influencers, all of that sits under one umbrella. If I want to go beyond, so I want to do a non-paid social, I want to do events, I want to do other areas, then I need to have other collaborators. So at any given moment, if I would want to launch in a new place, the question would be, what's the importance of that versus all other areas? And which of the disciplines that we have can support it the most at any given point? That's one important thing. And what's the capacity? Because if I want to launch a new market in APAC, as a starting point, I would need to have a proof of concept. Like I won't be able to take the budget that I put in US and put it in a small market in APAC. Like it won't work. No CFO would sign that one.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of hedging the risk. And also we are tightly connected to the sales organization that we work with. And it's also about which mouth you need to feed. So we set up a clear quota per market, and we have like a benchmark of how many MQLs we need to bring per seller in order to generate the enough amount of business. And then we know like, okay, have we reached the quota? Haven't reached the quota. So what can we do next? That's kind of the areas. So it's a matrix at the end.
Scaling your content marketing and SEO efforts can be difficult. If you're looking for a partner to help you succeed, Entail AI has the right tools to help you achieve your marketing goals. Find out more at the link in our bio or go to entail.ai to check out our range of solutions.
So who's the person, or what's the title of the person that runs this entire show? Like you're saying, yeah, of course, you can't take the US budget and then decide I'm going to start advertising in Ireland. So you want to start small, you want to kind of like prove your case and then grow from there. So it starts with like a smaller team that starts to search for what types of marketing work in that market, and then gradually grows. Does it work like that? And who's the person who's in charge of this? Is like you say, is it like a small like commando team that builds the operation and then it starts scaling up and being divided into teams? How do you run that?
As I mentioned at the beginning, at the end of the day, it's a matter of resources, budget, time. That's like this is the game. This is what you have to play, and then you try to improvise. I don't have an extra team that would be the guerrilla team to open a new market and then make it work and then push it to the bigger team. Like that's not a privilege that I have. Sounds amazing, but we're not there. What we do have is when there's a decision on a new market, for example, then there's a cross-functional focus on, okay, so what do we need to do in order to get that market rolling? For example, Taboola have partnered with Yahoo, so that's not a new market, but a significant new publisher and advertiser at the same time. So it just increases what Taboola can offer for clients. And in order to move that, this was a bigger one. So this was like a cross-company task force to see how can we work together and support both helping Yahoo clients to easily migrate to Taboola. And second, find those historic clients, or those clients that in the past wanted to work with Yahoo or think positive things about Yahoo, and we can bring them as clients. And then that was a focus, and we built it, and we built a squad team around that. But that was like on top of the regular activity that people are doing. It's not like, okay, now you have the privilege to do just that, at least on my team.
So in terms of how you optimize or between different channels, I mean, going back to multi-channel marketing, can you give a few examples of how you optimize, because for example, you said you start with paid and then SEO supports it or email supports it or an event. Can you give like a concrete example of how you use it?
Of how I use multi-channel?
Like how channels support each other, how you optimize between channels. Like you see something that works with paid, then you add it to your SEO strategy.
So first, it's super important and always a challenge to have an open communication, because people usually are used to work in silos. Like if I own the SEO domain, so I'm looking SEO. If I own the paid domain, I'm looking just on my paid. If I'm owning email marketing, so I'm looking only on email marketing. And creating the culture and the structure to be able to collaborate on insights, like what did I learn? I did a test about a landing page and I got audience insights. That could be super relevant for someone who's doing SEO, or that could be super relevant for someone who's doing email marketing. So that could be an audience insight, could be a marketing insight, could be a budget improvement that they've done. So all of that areas are places where we were working on the cross collaboration. Second, because everyone have one goal and everyone knows what's the funnel and which is their bit in the funnel and which are the markets of focus per quarter, then we use that as the place for collaboration. So like, hey, we now see that our drop is in this stage and not in the previous stage. What happened? And then, okay, so SEO, please check if it's in your end, if it's the same. Search brands, check if it's the same on your end. R&D, is something got broken in your end. Like we're checking it all around, and then we're getting. I mean, it's both good for tackling issues, but also you can get learnings out of that and how you can take one thing from one area and implement it elsewhere.
Back to kind of like innovation and testing. I mean, I often see that in marketing, what we do is we separate between testing and execution and skill. So if you want to try something new, and I often see that it's also very important. If you want to try something new, most people don't like to fail, so they're gonna like try very hard to make something work. And it's very similar to that point you made about analysis paralysis, where you overthink things and then you don't move fast enough. So what we do is we define something as a test, so we can move very quickly on that and say, okay, the goal is to learn. We want to learn as quickly as possible. So the quality, the creatives, whatever, aren't necessarily the goal to make this thing look the most beautiful and represent us, et cetera, et cetera. It's just about learning, getting like, what do we want to learn? How do we learn that as quickly as possible? And then move from there. And then once we've learned, either if it doesn't work, we stop the activity or we iterate until it works. And then we want to scale. So again, with multi-channel, it seems to me like you need to test every channel separately, because what works with SEO won't necessarily work with paid or with email, etc. But then at the same time, like you say, you have to be in sync and you have to have the same messaging. So how do you test new things when you do multi-channel marketing?
First, for us, everything is a test. You don't launch anything without having a benchmark. Even if you're saying, I'm just putting this one, at least you need to have a benchmark of what you expect to have from a previous period and how that would work. And it's the same if you're checking the title of your homepage, or if you're changing a field in your form, or if you are working with newsletter A versus newsletter B. Like everything needs to have a test, and everything needs to have a benchmark that makes sense to go out for that test. So a lot of the discussions that, like, my role is to be the bad guy in many cases and say, like, it's great that you want to test it, but your initial premise is just too costly. Like you're saying, my success is, I don't know, 10 opportunities for $1 million. No, I won't do that. We won't do that. So for me, this is like the one barrier that I put. Like, you want to test things, go ahead. You have a good idea, go ahead. You need the budget, you need the budget or to put the extra resources on it. Give me a one-liner that says, I'm putting X, I'm going to get Y. This is why I believe it would work. This is what I need. If that makes sense, go ahead. Like that's the one barrier. And then with that, we try to have everyone is free to do their own thing as much as possible. But we need to think about dependencies. Like a lot of the tests that we would do on our end, we would need to make sure that we have the right infrastructure for them, for example. So in some cases, we would say, I don't care about the infrastructure. I'm going to do it on my own guerrilla style. And let's see. And because I believe in it that much that I'm willing to update an Excel sheet on a daily basis to see if that works. And in some cases, that's justified. In some cases, I worked myself a long time for something that didn't prove itself. Plus, I had to fill in an Excel sheet every day. So the limitations of, hey, in order to do that, we also need additional support that is not in our area is also important. So I also urge my team to move forward as much as we can with things that we're not dependent on others. Because when we're dependent on others, we can't control timelines and complexities. And would someone make a blocker on something like that we don't care about? So that's kind of where we try to tackle that, or how we try to tackle that.
Okay, but you're saying that people from within the team, they come up with initiatives for things that they want to test. So that's something that's part of your culture. That's something that often happens.
I mean, I try to make it as more as possible. Sometimes it makes more sense, sometimes it doesn't. But there's a goal. If you have a good idea of how to bring up that goal, go for it. Okay, we're now building and increasing our influencer and partnership area. So my guidance to the team there is, as long as the cost per opportunity that you're bringing is within the range, or like your hopeful, wishful thinking is in the range, like, because we don't know, because it's a test. But if your initial assumption is that we're going in the right direction, go for it. But you need to but this is your general budget. You need to hedge your risk, and you feel free to fail.
So you have a budget for the test itself, like you say. I mean, these are the confinements basically. You have, I don't know, you have X amount of dollars for Y amount of time, for like a period of time to test your assumption and see if it works or not. I mean, after you make your case why this assumption is worthwhile, right?
Basically, yeah. And it's also it also depends on how much it costs. Like if the test is peanuts in terms of cost, because I'm looking, because my perspective is paid media. Paid media is super expensive. So if you can give me a peanut test that has a mediocre and above chances of working, I'm game. Like give me efficiency. I'm with you. But if you're giving me something that is like, yeah, we're gonna put this amount of budget and it's gonna take us 8 months to learn. I'm not really sure what we'll get, but others got this. No. Let's not do that. Waste of time.
Another question that I have is really about the differences between channels. And I know it's very subjective. It really depends on the company or the product that you're marketing. So it's like asking, what's the best car, But you could say, the best. I mean, for me, the best off-road is this, and the best road car is that. But Can you like provide like a simple like general breakdown of the different channels? You said like paid is usually the largest one. I mean, because you work in a marketing company, and I mean that's an advertising platform, and you're in charge of growth, so you see a lot of marketing all around. So maybe also for our listeners, I mean, like a quick or a general breakdown of different channels and who should advertise on Google. Is it right for small businesses, larger businesses, on Meta, etc.?
First, it should always start and end with how much budget you have. So if we're talking about, if you're really small, have a limited budget, or let's say, you're a marketeer / owner / sales / fulfillment / shipment / customer success / doorkeeper, then you should first take an agency if you can. And second, keep it simple, stupid. Stick to the bare minimums of the things that are cheap for you and you don't need to pay for and you're good with. Okay, so like first your website, your initial basic SEO that you can have, how someone outsource, initial email marketing, some non-expensive social that you can do, stuff like that. The moment that you grow and you're like, this is not enough, then paid has to be part of the game. For the small timer, you can also do like initial search, like really localized Facebook something. But that's about it. The moment that you grow, and let's talk about D2C, for example. Okay, if you're a D2C company, you have a nice volume of sales. So it's not, it stopped being a hobby. That's the point where you need to understand, okay, so how do I grow? And it's and in that area, it's a matter of testing. So Facebook's great for D2C, Taboola is great for D2C, TikTok is great for D2C, Google is great for D2C, but you need to test, and you're limited in how much you can test and where you go. So, search and organic would always win because there's search and organic. That's it. But the question is, what's the next runner-up that you put? And are you able to have a proper uplift test to check, now that I've added the additional channel, what do I get from that specific channel? Like, what's my allowable price? So let's say you're selling cool bottles of water, shiki and stainless steel or whatever, and your price for Google paid is $5 a pop.
Mm-hmm.
You need to understand that once you go beyond Google brand, your prices would go up. What's your allowable price when you go elsewhere? Elsewhere would be Facebook, would be Taboola, would be TikTok, would be whatever. And it can't be that's $5. It would be like at least 5 times more.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to understand that with those 5 times more, you're going to get click-through conversion, view-through conversions as well. That's supposed to give you an uplift on your search. Like if you don't see an upscale in search, then something's not working. Obviously, you need to have enough budget there in order to be able to do that. So thinking that you can scale with $10 a day somewhere, no, it's not going to work. Take your money and put it elsewhere. Put it in learning how to do marketing or in paying someone to do your search, or I don't know, something like that. And the bigger you get, the more you need to invent yourself and scale where you're going and what you're doing. Pay the least as much as you can and move forward for that. The outlook that I used, and I used to, it's like something I got from my days in the agency. You need to look at it as a fountain, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you need to. It's a fountain with multiple pools. So you're filling up the smallest pool, the smallest bucket. Then the water over pours from it, so that bucket is not effective enough. Then you need to move to the next one. Then you need to move to the next one. Then you need to move to the next one. That's the way you look at your cross-channel activity, and that's the way you need to look at a specific channel. So when you do specifically ad groups on Facebook or a specific a placement that you would optimize on Taboola, you would search, okay, this is helpful for me. Now I need to go. Now this is the bucket that I need. And in the past, it was really easy for a user to do it across all the platforms. But now everything is more of a black box because it's just like the platform optimized for you. You get better results, but you're losing the visibility. So you just kind of, in many cases, need to wing with it. But at least across channels, you are able and should be able to do that.
But I mean, the fact that the platforms run it for you, like Performance Max on Google and so on, and you get good results is a good thing. But do you also get the insights that you would? Because if you're learning on
less insights that you did in the past. For everything that is cookie based, you get way less insights. A good thing about Taboola is it's not cookie based, so you get you get the network's insights, and you also get what worked for you and what didn't work for you. But
Taboola is more like intent based, based on the intent of the article that you're reading.
It's based on there's the context. So. Mm-hmm. People are interested in, and also we track the intent based on people who actually click this ad in this placement in this specific vertical and this specific market, and then you can work with it.
Thank you for listening to the Entail AI podcast. Join us next time for another masterclass when we sit down with a marketing luminary to reveal their path to success.